In 1987, Nancy was the second child born to Thomas and Elizabeth Perkins in Mirador, Virginia. In 1918, Nancy married her first husband, Henry Field, who passed away 6 months later. In 1920, she would marry her second husband, Ronald Tree, who was a cousin of her deceased husband. They had met on a voyage to Britain, where they would later make their home in 1927 and become British subjects in 1947. Together they had 3 children. Her first son, Michael Lambert Tree, born in 1921, daughter Rosemary, who died at birth in 1922, and Jeremy Tree, their second son, born in 1925. Their first home together was in New York on East 96th Street and had previously belonged to Ogden Codman, a Boston architect. He and Elsie DeWolf wrote their book, The House of Good Taste, which would become an early inspiration to Nancy's work. Later, Nancy and Ronald would move back to Virginia, where Nancy would work with William Delano and learn the importance of gardening and it being an extension of the house. This would become Nancy's lifelong hobby and one of many things she would be well known for. Nancy was also known as a great hostess and once threw a housewarming party in their Ditchley Estate home. It was a memorable ball of 1,000 guests who all wore red and white. She would work on the Ditchley Estate with Sybil Colfax. This interior would earn Nancy a reputation of having the finest taste of almost anyone in the world. She was also known to lend a helping hand at the soup kitchen and to the soldiers during World War II, where their Ditchley Estate would be used for occasional cabinet meetings. Later, Ronald gained a job in the Ministry of Information. During this time, he met Merida Fitzgerald, who he would begin to have an affair with. In 1947, Ronald and Nancy divorced, but Nancy would always remain close to both of her sons. Nancy would go on to remarry in 1948 to Lieutenant Colonel Claude Lancaster, but divorced after only 5 years. But where her marriages all ended, her career would continue to soar. Earlier in 1946, Nancy bought Colfax and Fowler after Sybil Colfax decided to retire. John Fowler thought that houses should be modest and elegant, simple and classic, but Nancy believed that houses should be brimming with activity and exhilarating in spirit. While they may not have agreed on much outside of their work, when they came together on a project, it was always something astonishing to behold. Together, their best well-known work would be the Yellow Room at Avery Row in Mayfair. This was described as one of the finest rooms in London. John and Nancy forged the way for the English country home look, with John's creative use of colors and masterful skills with drapery, and Nancy's magic ingredients, open fires, candlelights, and many flowers. She also believed that if there were enough green, anything went with anything and would mix the most unusual colors in a room. One of many things that they did not agree on was that Nancy liked to use a more tattered look. She would age the furniture by placing it in rain and soak new curtains in tea to give them a well-used look. John, however, hated this and preferred a more clean and frilly look. In the end, through death, divorce, and disaster, Nancy persevered through all of it and made her mark on history with the help of John Fowler. She was an inspiring woman who found a passion for design and worked hard through everything that was thrown her way. Nancy Lancaster passed away in 1994 and was buried in Virginia by her first husband, Henry Field, and her daughter, Rosemary. She left behind a legacy that will never be forgotten.